Okay, let's get started. My name is Tom Sheridan. I'm the Assistant Director for Student Life, Student Activities for the University of Colorado, Denver. And this is our third event in the week-long series, The Anatomy of War. The intent of the series is to take a nice, broad look at the war on terror, not just Afghanistan, not just Iraq, but all aspects of the war on terror, which is now in its 7th year. We began combat operations officially on October 7th, 2001, so we felt that it would be appropriate to do a broad-based series like this. Monday we had Lorna Tykerstoop on campus. She is an independent journalist and spends about 2 or 3 months out of the year in Iraq touring different villages, different parts of the country. She's very involved in the environmentalist movement in Iraq. And she brought a really very interesting perspective to the war. The title of her lecture was Many Truths the War You Won't See on Television, and she certainly did share a perspective that you aren't going to see on mainstream television. Her work is online. Yesterday we presented Undersecretary of Defense Douglas Feith. He was the Undersecretary for Foreign Policy in the Middle East specifically, and I believe Southeast Asia as well. And he talked a little bit about his experiences. He served as Undersecretary from 2001 to 2005 and wrote a book titled War and Decision, which is in the your area bookstore, and I recommend it. It's dense reading, but very heavily documented and very interesting perspective, once again, on the war and how we got to where we are today. Today's event is titled, So What's Wrong with the Patriot Act? When we started putting this together, it was intended to be a debate. We wanted to have a person, a very knowledgeable person on the left side of the political spectrum debate somebody on the right side of the political spectrum. But what we learned is it's very difficult to find people who are very enthusiastically in support of the Patriot Act. So what we were able to do is connect with the ACLU Colorado and the Independence Institute and bring them together to talk about what's wrong with the Patriot Act. It's a fairly loose format. I'll ask a few questions, but for the most part I'm going to leave it to the experts and yourselves. So this is a Q&A as well. Feel free to step up to the microphone at any time if you have a specific question you'd like to ask, clarification, and that's how we're going to run this. So without further ado, I'd like to ask our guests to just kind of introduce themselves, talk about their organizations a little bit. Cathryn?
My name is Cathryn Hazouri. I am the Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Colorado. We are a statewide organization. We are nonpartisan. We do not get involved with candidates at any time. When I say we're nonpartisan, people don't really often believe that, but we don't like Democrats any better than we do Republicans, quite frankly, because nobody's very good on civil liberties, at least not 100%. So we may bash various administrations, but it's not because of their party affiliation, but rather because they ignore the Constitution. And I often say that we have one client, and that really is the Bill of Rights. And so that's sort of a quick summary of the ACLU.
David?
Hi. I am Dave Kopel. I'm Research Director of the Independence Institute, which is one of the oldest of the state-level think tanks in the United States. I am, by the way, also have been a member of the American Civil Liberties Union since 1978. The Independence Institute is founded on what we call the eternal truths of the Declaration of Independence, which is that the people have a right to govern themselves, and that human rights are inalienable and fundamental. I suppose our key client is the Declaration of Independence, but we're also very big fans of the entire Constitution, and certainly including the Bill of Rights. The first public work I did on the Patriot Act was within a few days after September 11th, when I went on MSNBC and debated a retired FBI official about the bill that was then moving through Congress, and said that the administration, or at least certain elements in it, were using September 11th to push not only for some things that were needed, but for a lot of other things that were not even really related to counterterrorism and that were excessive and intrusive and contrary to our Constitution.
I'd like to add one quick thing. A major part of the Patriot Act was written by the Justice Department during the Clinton administration after the Oklahoma City bombing. Just so you know, see, we don't like the Democrats much more than we do the Republicans. So.
Well, let me, if I could follow up and just elaborate a little bit, because we too are nonpartisan in the sense that, you know, sometimes we have Republicans who like the things we support, like greater freedom of choice and the schooling system, and we're restraining tax increases, and other times Democrats might be more likely to agree with some of the things we talk about, like reforming sentencing laws for nonviolent offenses. Let me just give you the sort of the precise, and this is one of the ways where over 2 decades in public policy I've seen the unfortunate bipartisan consensus that exists in our executive branch. After the Oklahoma City bombing, the Clinton administration pulled out this anti-terrorism proposal, which was really a bunch of stuff that had been on the FBI's wish list for a long time, and they'd been trying to get through Congress and had not been able to do so. And Clinton demagogued up and down the country, and, you know, I mean, it was horrific, the shamelessness and the deceitfulness and the way he was waving the bloody shirt of Oklahoma City. And virtually nothing, in fact, nothing in that act as proposed actually could have even plausibly prevented the Oklahoma City bombing. But it was, you know, just saying Oklahoma City plus terrorism, and Oklahoma City certainly was an act of terrorism. A coalition in Washington, D.C., led by my friend Gene Guerrero, who was the ACLU's one of their lead federal lobbyists at the time, brought together groups like the American Friends Service Committee, which was connected with the Quaker Church and is very much part of the hyper-PC left, along with groups like Gun Owners of America and the National Rifle Association, and I participated as well. And we were, the information we provided actually helped lead to that bill being significantly slimmed down and passed in a much less bad form, although the Clinton administration, its relentlessness, got a lot of the bad ideas through by sticking them on as appropriations riders and things like that in subsequent years. And we saw the same kind of dynamic after September 11th, where there was a great deal of stuff that was in the Patriot Act which was not related to September 11th or to counterterrorism in general, but had simply been on wish lists of the U.S. Marshals or the FBI or other groups, and had been already considered and rejected by Congress on its merits, but then it got wrapped in to a broader, you know, to something where something did need to be done, but what was done was much broader than what was appropriate. Yeah. And by the way, from the inside, you know, John Ashcroft really got villainized in this whole process, but I can tell you from folks who were in the negotiations that he was the reasonable guy, and he understood the civil liberties objections that people like Senator Russ Feingold or Representative Bob Barr were raising, and it was ultimately, and the bill that passed out of the House Judiciary Committee was a very good bill, and then it became terrible over on the Senate side, and the source, the motivation for that was first it was the White House and not the Ashcroft Department of Justice that was the driving force behind that, and it was also the decision of Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle that we're not going to fight on this. You know, we're just going to roll over on this because the political damage would be too severe if we tried to really even improve this bill in very many ways.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's safe to say that the bill was pushed through for pure political reasons. So
no,
they were afraid, frankly, to take the heat. I mean, I think in that respect, it was purely political. I mean, something needed. I agree. I do think that's true because something needed to be done, and nobody wanted to be accused of not protecting America. And most people, frankly, didn't. Most of the representatives and the senators